Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds, and I am hanging out with one of my fellow Nerdarchists today. So we were supposed to have a guest today, and hopefully he's okay because I cannot hearing on the internet anywhere. So that being said, it will be me and Ted talking about whatever. And yeah, apparently you had to hunt for the link. So sorry about that, Professor Bill. I'll actually start sending the link out other places real fast since that's the case. Um, and maybe change what the thing is or something. I don't know.
So who were we supposed to have on today?
It was Ryan Schapal. I don't know if I'm saying his name right or not, but he is actually the first and only full-time employee for Open Legend RPG.
Ah.
And Bill, we don't know. We don't know how he feels about our game. I sent him the confirmation last night, and I sent it out a little bit later than I normally do. But I believe he's on the West Coast, so I'm like, well, it's not too bad. I mean, it's probably like 4 in the afternoon or whatever for him. But I haven't heard anything. You know, the message has not been seen, so I was just like, well, here we go. we will hashtag vote Krizix. Nice. You know what? I really want to do some commentary on that, but I won't. Here at Nerdarchy, we try and stay unpolitical. So how's your day going?
Is that to me or to the comments?
Both. How's your day going?
Work is flowing like normal.
You know, okay, so I just heard from Ryan, and I'm going to tell him to come on in.
Awesome.
And then we see you guys get a bonus Ted, as the case may be. 9 a.m. Yeah, well, it's 9 a.m. somewheres, or it was anyway. Not necessarily now. Oh boy. So, man, can you believe we're almost through the summer already? It feels like we'll be in LA next week.
Well, that is absolutely true. But by this time next week, we will be in his time zone. So.
Yeah. I was like, oh, another person in LA. We should try and meet. I'm like, then it came to me. It occurred to me that I'm like, oh, I can't possibly see all the people that that I encounter that happen to be on the East Coast. So that probably won't work. West Coast. Sorry, I'm multitasking and I'm not very good at it. And for some reason, my phone doesn't work the way it used to in the basement. It used to actually get a decent signal, but something has changed.
Well, now you can make this hero pose that you've got that.
Yeah.
Thrust out.
You like that? Huh? That's for you, Professor Bell. So we're probably gonna get a Ryan shortly. It would appear. Right now, I'm just doing some sharing.
So the Open Legend game is actually going pretty well. Do we actually have a scheduled number of sessions that you want to have this game? Is it just going to kind of go on forever? What are you seeing for this?
I believe the world's going to end eventually. Cthulhu will come through, and you guys will go insane. Probably gouge your own eyes out, and then kill yourselves.
Nice.
If it goes all according to plan.
Well, hopefully we can thwart that plan to some degree.
But you know how it is. It never goes according to plan. Yeah, so there's always that. Where do you want to see the game go since you're a player?
Well, I mean, I'm excited to actually be able to have some, non-narrated time, in Haven. I think that'd be kind of interesting to actually be able to, I guess, have developed enough power to resist whatever's going on there and, see what's up there. But I mean, beyond that.
Look, dude, they all say that until the tentacles start flying.
Well, I mean, they're only, they're only characters, right?
That's true, man. That's true. Right? You can always roll up another one.
Yeah, sometimes characters got to have a tragic end, especially when you're playing a horror type game.
That's true. So, I mean, we've had a lot of like action and stuff going on, investigation, exploration. It's only my, I guess the only a little bit of the minor touch of the horror stuff thus far.
We've had the first session, and then a little bit with, um, I would imagine, what is she calling the dragon hiss?
What is? I'm sorry. What was that?
Is Megan is calling her dragon hiss?
Yes, yes.
So I think that there's a little bit of a horror-esque theme with that.
Yeah, the and it got stepped up last session too. So, and and Dr. Loosely, had her first, basically had her sanity really challenged for the first time, and she actually took some decent sanity damage.
Yeah, makes for interesting and compelling
Over the
play.
edge. So much so that she even got some levels of corruption. So Dr. Lucy has a lot of firepower to bring to bear, and the only thing she has to lose is her mind and her soul.
Well, there's some people who don't value those things.
Like Homer Simpson traded for a jelly donut.
Absolutely.
I guess if you give up your sanity as well, that could be like that. That might add sprinkles. Comic Book University, Turkey Graham Poobah is the greatest horror of the game. Well, he's meant to be kind of horrific, so I guess that's kind of the point. But I guess, as we were saying too, we're getting really close to going out to LA. We're still like figuring out arranging schedules and stuff like that. And you guys, if you happen to be in LA and you want to hang out, you got to let us know. Reach out to us at nerdarchy@gmail.com so that we can figure something out and plan something. Right now, I think we're looking at probably maybe a Friday afternoon, Friday evening to do something. Is probably the best day.
That is the current plan.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we can do the Geek and Sundry tour on Thursday. Something was said about possibly hanging out there Thursday night, which that could be pretty cool. I don't know if anything happens there Thursday nights or not, but I know when me and Steph were looking, we're kind of looking at the area and stuff, and put in the address for Geek and Sundry, and it says they're open to like 1:30 in the morning. So,
wow. Are they gonna challenge our ability to stay awake?
Maybe. Well, maybe yours. I'm actually pretty good at staying awake. Sleep is for the weak. No. Sleep when you're dead.
Proclaim me weak.
Someone says there's this thing called Critical Role that goes on Thursday nights. What's that? Never heard of it. Yeah. So that would actually be really cool. Sunday they shoot Maze Arcana, so we might be able to check that out as well. Then actually Saturday is actually GM Tips. And my understanding is what Satine does is try and throw everybody into the green room together, so you kind of get to rub elbows and meet other people. So that's pretty cool. I also, after we do our weekly live chat on Saturday, I'm playing in a 12-hour marathon stream over on Encounter Roleplay. I won't be there for all 12 hours, just for a block of it, where they're pimping and showing off their new module that they kickstarted. And I believe that might still be out there. I mean, Sydney was on, was it last week, the week before? They all blur together after, I think 2 weeks ago. So she was on talking about it, and you guys can check that out. It is, what is the name of it? Something Gore, the World of Gore, or Breath of Gore. The Breath of Gore is what it's called. It very much has a very 80s heavy metal kind of sound to it. For some reason, it makes me think of Gwar, but with orcs.
Well, if we're gonna be pimping stuff and whatnot, I will throw out there again the Nerdarchy inspired or Nerdarchy curated dungeon crate. If you pay attention to the live chat tomorrow, I'm actually going to go through a little bit more in detail of what stuff is going to be in it. But it's all stuff that we here at Nerdarchy kind of picked out to get a good theme going. A bunch of cool stuff, and you do have to sign up by August 4th if you want to get that. I have secured one as a eventual giveaway for our Nerdarchy fans. We'll figure out exactly what's going to go on with that at some point in time, but yeah, there you go.
Doug saying you'll probably get to meet your upcoming teammate Amy Dallin too. That's a possibility as well. I mean, we do got a title of the event, and you're like, well, this doesn't seem to match what's here. That's because time zones got crossed or something, and I'm not sure if Ryan's going to make it in or not. If he does, great. If not, we carry on.
That's what we do here, regardless of what happens. We strive to keep this thing going.
Comic Book University. Ted will meet his fate with sword in hand and bikini mount and a Nerdarchy thong. I'll send flowers.
Why am I wearing a bikini now? Is there a new development that I'm not aware of?
No. Bikini mount. It's to protect you, Ted. It's to protect you. They're just showing concern for you and your vitals. So, by wearing that chain bikini, you should be safe-ish.
Right.
Oh man, I'm sure the internet wants to see that.
I don't know anybody that wants to see that.
Jose Cerez, Critical Role will not air tonight. The cast will be at the local Comic-Con. Well, that's okay because we're not going to be there tonight. We're going to be there next week. So maybe we just make it, which would be cool. Amy Dallin is a fan of comic book info. Yeah, I heard she does a comic book thing, so that'll be cool. She needs to team up with Professor Ville and Comic Book University. They can trivia off to the death.
Comic book knowledge death battle.
Comic book knowledge death battle. And also at Gen Con, I'm supposed to be playing in a game with Matt Colville, Amy Dallin, as Doug had mentioned, Maze Arcana, and Todd Kenrick. I think I'm saying that. Yeah, Todd Kenrick. And I think that's everyone. Hopefully I'm not forgetting about someone. So that should be a lot of fun. And I feel like I got Keith Baker's spot. Like they invited him to be in the game, but he's card games. He mostly has card games at those times. So it works out. I get a spot. I figured it was like something like that. Like somebody had to die or something. And then that's how I got the invite. They're like, who can we have that isn't already doing something? They're like, I know, Dave. He's got nothing better to do. Comic Book University. Can we wear thongs while we battle? You can do whatever you want, bro, man. No one's stopping you. There's a link in the cards, so you can go get your Nerdarchy thong and do battle.
Oh man.
I better get a backstage pass to that. I'm going to have you babysitting my 16-year-old son, Doug. Which I'm hoping, like, when we doing the Nerdarchy stuff, it's not going to, like, totally kill Gen Con for him and figuring out. I already turned down a game with Brian Stillman. He had 2 slots, and I'm like, well, there's 3 of us. He's like, well, I only got 2 seats. I'm like, but Nerdarchy, and he's like, 2 seats. Nah, it was really cool about it. But I would have loved to play in this game, but we are a trio, and we're gonna do stuff for Nerdarchy and together, I imagine. So there's going to be plenty of games going on. I don't know if you guys find me, I'll run some games. Or, send, again, we have that Gmail account, nerdarchy@gmail.com. You can send us an email and let me know if you're going to be at Gen Con, if you guys want to meet up, what we want to do. Thursday's pretty jam-packed, but the rest of Gen Con, I don't really have much scheduled yet. So I'm definitely going to have openings for hanging out with fans.
So you've put this out there before, for the fans to do to me. So now I'm going to throw it out to you guys. So if you see Dave at Gen Con, tackle him.
Dog pile on the rabbit. Nice. It's all right. I'm all for it. We make you laugh. I know some of the things we say too. Um, are there any good Kickstarters in the back for D&D right now? I will turn that over to my Kickstarter expert.
Okay, so we have several things that are currently going on um, from our friends over at Gemhammer and Sons Gaming. We have, of course, I went to the wrong login. We have um, the was it the Compendium of Wild Beasts? Is that what that was called?
Yes, the Compendium Wild Beast. It is
Why,
absolutely called that.
why is it not low? There we go. I'm trying to find the way to log out. It's got me in the wrong setup here. Give me just a moment, peoples, and I will throw the rest of the information at you that I happen to have. Rawr. So ending soon is the Dice of Rolling by PCK Games, or PKC Games. That is um, the optimized dice for 5th edition. It's
I haven't looked
29
at that in a
dice that are
while.
completely.
I haven't
It's
looked at that
500,
Kickstarter in a while, but let's
578% funded. 28,934 out of $5,000. 1,133 backers with 6 days to go.
yeah, I couldn't believe that one did so well. And actually, I turned the corner on it, but at first I was like, "What? This is a stupid set of dice. Who's going to pay for this?" But when it was pointed out to me, so like here was my train of thought, and me and Ted were thinking like the same thing. We're like, well, you can buy a pound of dice for about the same, and that's true. But then like a new player still has the same problem. They still don't know which dice to roll. And at least with the color coding and there being basically about the amount of dice you're going to need, you can just tell your new player, hey, grab the red ones or grab the purple ones, and it does make it really easy for them.
And it's one of those things that there are some people out there that they just they buy all the dice that they can get, and for those people, yay, great. But for the people who are honestly looking to get into this game that have never done an RPG before, have never played D&D before, and you find these 6 polyhedrals confusing as to which one to roll, this really is a perfect set. And unless you're going to get to the high levels of casting for spells, you really aren't going to need any more dice than what's there. There are a number of modules or supplements out there for 5th edition. There's the Breath of Gore. There's Dungeons on Demand, Gods and Goddesses. I haven't checked those things out too much. So it's you're looking to get into Kickstarter stuff. There's definitely some options out there.
Too many options. I did a run of having people on that were doing Kickstarters. I'm like, man, I kind of feel bad. We just keep hammering these guys with Kickstarter after Kickstarter. And like Keith was really cool about it. He was like, I can talk about other stuff. I'm like, nah, talk about your thing too. But oh, we've summoned the spirit. Possibly. We're almost there. Hey, Ryan.
Yeah.
So while Ryan's getting situated here, why don't we jump into the roll call, guys? Because we're almost halfway through anyway. So where are you guys hailing from today? And I'm not sure if Ryan's frozen or not. He said he was having device issues, so he was switching device because he was getting an error. Oh, no, I'm in the chat.
Oh,
Ryan has apparently been replaced by a robot.
Yeah, you're breaking up a bit. It might be. Sometimes the tech gods are just not with us. So we got Doug in Cleveland. We've got Kerfluffle in the house, Comic Book University. Tom Harris is in Indiana. Turner is in Birmingham, Alabama. Victor is in Niagara Falls, New York. We've got San Diego in the house with Banana Kush. Logan is in Wisconsin. Jose is in Tampa, Florida. Jeff is in Luxembourg. Ryan F. is in New York City. Andrew Orwin is in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I've got dinging, so let me check and see if that's right. Okay. Sorry, guys. Some technical difficulties here that we are getting through as we speak. You want to take over, Ted?
Yeah, I'm getting to the chat now.
Babble at these guys.
So where did you leave off on the roll call?
I left off. That's a very good question, Ted. I'm glad you asked me that very good question. I don't know. I dropped the chat.
Niagara Falls. Is that it?
I did. Andrew in Fort Lauderdale is where we left off.
All right. So then we have Sean Thomas in Covina, not California. We got Fozix in Port Charlotte, Florida. Wafrap in Germany. We got Arasu in the Netherlands. Kyle coming from Castlegar. Andrew in Ohio. John Breckenridge in Little Rock, Arkansas. And Doug has apparently moved from Ohio to Brian F. Luke Newberry is in the Pineapple Under the Sea. So
nice.
I apologize for Luke living down there.
Maybe he likes it there, man.
The Pineapple Under the Sea and everything associated with it is not a welcome thing in this household, unfortunately.
Yeah, my son used to love SpongeBob. He would always play his nose. We also got Ukraine in the house. Welcome, guys. It's really cool seeing everyone from all over the place. Andrew Hurd, Boston. I almost made it to Boston. So close, yet so far away. Oh no, Doug was actually trying to help you, Ted.
Oh,
he was letting you know where you left off.
Ah, okay.
That was very kind of him.
Doug is super helpful like that. He is one of our amazing volunteers. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good now. I got this setup worked out. Amazing that I've worked. I worked like 14 months in live streaming and could not connect to this live stream. Irony is not lost on me.
That is certainly amusing.
You guys stream mostly to. Not you guys anymore, but they stream mostly to Twitch, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And they've got all the gear. I was like, oh god, I got this new Chromebook. I was like, wait, can my Chromebook even do it? And with a little, here and there, we got it working. But
a little massaging.
I was never the tech expert at Hyper RPG. Let it be known.
What? How do you pronounce your last name? Because I probably butchering.
Yeah. No worries. It's pronounced Schapals, so it just rhymes with apples.
Or Snapple.
Or Snapple, if you're feeling frisky with it, yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking. Nice. So you've recently have taken over or become Open Legend RPG's first full-time employee.
Yeah, it's wild. That's amazing. So I am the narrative director and brand manager at Open Legend, which is pretty wild, pretty crazy. I couldn't have planned for any of this, but it's pretty awesome.
So you should be like a shoe-in for the employee of the month.
If I'm not, there's like some serious problems, right? Like, ooh, it's a bad month at Open Legend.
Nice. So one of my players in my Open Legend game was wondering if you've caught any of it.
No, I haven't. I am woefully ignorant of it.
No worries. There is a ton of stuff, and I'm sure you're quite busy.
Crunch time right before Gen Con. This is the big time.
We have a game that runs on Fridays from noon to 2 in Open Legend, and it's kind of a mash between a eldritch horror, spy, steampunk. What else am I missing, Dave?
Fantasy.
Fantasy.
I love it already. What kind of crew is getting mangled and dismembered through that?
We've got a pair of kobolds, a elf, a human,
and a dwarf.
And a dwarf.
The dwarf with a cybernetic arm.
And she's kind of a scuzzy lady.
Ooh. Okay.
The elven doctor, though she's not, as she says, that kind of doctor.
Mm-hmm.
There's a kobold mentalist and a kobold engineer.
Yeah, so it's more Arcana punk than steampunk. But we actually, when we decided to do the game, we had thrown it to the patrons and let them pick the genre. And
cool, I love it. It's like a mashup of genres.
Yeah. I believe steampunk and fantasy actually tied with eldritch horror and espionage being close behind. So I'm like, we can throw it all in there. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like, I don't know if this is just like the trend for my like small little bit of data I have, but like everyone I know who's like running it is running cross genre. Like my own personal campaign has been like sci-fi, superheroes. Of course, Amoria's Dawn is like fantasy and what I call soot punk. And then also like we're planning a podcast, which will definitely not be just a normal fantasy adventure. I can tell you that.
Ooh, so would you say superhero and what?
Superhero sci-fi.
Okay.
So it's set in the future, but it deals with like all the problems of technology, all the potential problems. It's like I watched a lot of Black Mirror and then wrote the campaign.
All right, I have to step in because I've apparently insulted one of the players.
Oh no,
he's not a mere mentalist. He's a paraplegic psychic badass. So I'll throw that out there for Bill. Hopefully his ego has been properly massaged.
It's important details.
So you said you were with Hyper RPG for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing that's how Brian found you?
That's right. So the way that Brian and I met is we used to have this show back in the day where every single afternoon we'd have a different game dev guest. And so he was one of many people I met through that, but he was like one of the few game devs where I was like, hey, whoa, this is really cool. But there's a lot of other projects that were cool. But B, I might actually be able to work with him because I was like, oh, it looks like this is still kind of in the beginnings. So I just reached out. I just asked. I said, hey, if you need any more writers, like I'd love to work with you. Here's like a sample for what I wrote for Harebrained Schemes. And he loved it. So that's how I got started working on House Nivinalia and then kind of getting my claws in everything as we went.
Yeah, we primarily play D&D, and I love D&D, but our fan base is always like, how do you do this with D&D and how do you do that with D&D? And I'm like, generally the best way to do that with D&D is not use D&D because other systems are doing it better, and D&D is just really good at being D&D. But when you try and stretch it, it doesn't. I don't think it performs very well in those other roles, those other genres where. That's probably why like people who gravitate towards Open Legend, they're kind of like, oh, well, this is, it's right in the name open. And I don't think that's entirely what Brian intended by the name, but it actually does work because it's open to whatever genre you want to play. Everything's there.
Yeah, no, it really is. And that's what I love about it is that like you could cross from like the 1980s back into medieval times with your, same exact cast of characters and you would have a great time and it wouldn't really slow you down at all. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. And like I agree with you. So I was like, I of course was raised on D&D and played, enough 3.5 to make my eyes want to bleed if I ever look at a 3.5 supplement ever again. But it's great for fantasy, like for traditional fantasy adventures, like, it's been the standard. So like I wouldn't why try to compete with that?
True. So how early did you come on board for Open Legend? Because I know when we first encountered Brian, we actually had him back at the lair because he's kind of local to us. He's in Delaware, we're in New Jersey, not too far away. He ran a game for us, and um, I think even then, like one of the things we kind of mentioned and pointed out was like the D&D isms in the supernatural abilities or extraordinary abilities. It's like, yeah, you should probably make them more generic. So, because even when we just saw like just looking at it at a glance, go, oh, you can do pretty much anything with this, but it'll be so much better if you just take some of these D&D isms out.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's I think largely been changed. Of course, I don't know what the core rules looked like at that time, and even so, when I started, it was in August, and so I wasn't like deep into like core rule stuff at that time either. So I'm not that aware, but yeah, I started in August, and so it's crazy. It's been like almost a year. Yeah, nearly a year.
Nice. Yeah.
Hard to
Yeah.
believe.
So I don't even know. I'd have to go back and see when we put the videos up, but it feels like forever ago at this point. But all the extraordinary abilities were still named after magic schools.
Oh yeah, no, that's yeah, no more of that. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, which is fine, but I felt it pigeonholed the system where it didn't really need to be.
Yeah, I agree. And now it's like really is just like interchangeable with whatever character you want.
So what would you say is your major contribution?
Well, it's quite a bit. Like pretty much I would say just about anything you read in the book, I've had my hands on, whether I was writing it or editing. I did a lot of that. I've even done, boy, let me tell you, this week. So the book itself is essentially done. It's just down to like formatting key sort of statistical blocks for characters. And so you'll see me in there from, whether it's House Nivenelia or if it's in Schlechtenberg, or if it's anywhere else in the world, or if it's a monster description, or if it's even the person who italicized the name of an item. I'm deep in that book. So like you can find me everywhere, but probably my favorite thing that I got to work on, I would say, is probably Schlechtenberg, actually, which is kind of interesting because it's not where most of the world really exists. So like Schlechtenberg, for people who don't know, is this sort of sooty, steamy, nasty, dirty city, giant city that's like basically like a whole country unto itself. And they've run out of resources, so they open this portal to Amoria, and they see, they're like, wow, it's lush, and there's this amazing jungle, and it's so green and verdant. Like, what a great place. Only problem is, of course, there's already people there. And so Schlechtenberg, to me, is really fascinating because it deals with like a lot of fun, weird twists on like the ramifications of their choices. Like, and they've been ravaged by war, and they've depleted the planet. And so part of me is like, ooh, I like, as soon as like I finished like writing, I was like, oh, I really want to write about what the heck is outside of Schlechtenberg. Like, what does the rest of the ruined world look like? What are the, different kingdoms and countries that were destroyed? Like that to me is like one of the things that's like still sort of percolating in my brain that I hope to eventually work on.
So I want to jump into the chat real quick and address this question. Andrew Oren, is Open Legend an updated GURPS, I think is what he's asking, because there's an end in there that I don't think should be. Absolutely not. It would be like the polar opposite of an updated GURPS, because GURPS is very crunchy and a crunch-heavy system where Open Legend is not.
Yeah, absolutely. No, definitely more storytelling based. And what's great is like, it's like a system that I love showing to my friends who've never played RPGs, like, which is something I never really like thought would happen in my lifetime, where I'd have a rule set that like doesn't take me like multiple hours to, work with them on a character.
I actually find one of the difficulties is because it is so rules light. I'm like, am I missing a rule here? And I'm like, I don't think so. There's only a handful. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff in the book, but there's not a ton of rules, so it's open interpretation. And I think it's a really good game if you have GMs and players that can build a cooperative story and work together. Because I find one of the issues with the character creation is you as the player have to agree what your character is and
Yes.
honor that. Because it's really easy to go, well, but by the rules, I can do X or do this.
Yeah, everyone just take attribute substitution too, and you can break the game, as quickly as you want to.
So, and that, I mean, that is always the issue of games that are really open-ended. I mean, even Mutants and Masterminds, which is, is not. If a player wants to break it, you can absolutely break it. I mean, most games are like that to some degree, but I feel like the more open-ended the system is, the easier it is to do that. So ultimately, you need players and GMs that aren't douchey to make the system work and for everyone to have fun.
That's not necessarily the words I would have used to describe it, but I don't mind that take. Yeah, I think there's got to be like a lot of trust and respect, and like you got to know like what you're coming into. And what I love actually is what I've seen is like when people give themselves extra weaknesses where like, I had a player character who could teleport, but they could only teleport into rooms where there was a reflective surface. And that's the kind of stuff that I really love about Open Legend is that it encourages you to like really like hone like the weirdness of your character and, really, really get creative with that stuff. And then anytime they wanted to teleport, it was like a creative challenge, and they had a little bit of a cheat where they had some reflective shades they could fling around, but it just made for a more interesting encounter than just the standard, oh, I just disappear and reappear.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I introduced in our game was tags. So like if you took an extraordinary ability, you had to tag it with something so that so one of the ideas is so that when you use it, it stays consistent in that use.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that's like kind of highlighting, I think one of the big things that's like weird maybe for some players to get used to is like, it's the impetus on you as a player is not to like crunch all the numbers. The impetus on you as a player is like to make sure you like know exactly how your character will be performing these actions with like clear images and style. So it's just kind of like a shift of how you approach character building.
And it absolutely is. But I only bring up those certain points because I'm pretty sure, like, if you've been gaming for a while, we've all had those players. And you're just like, oh, yeah. Really?
Yeah, Frenzied Berserker with Sworn Enemy? That seems pretty good. Okay. All right.
They're trying to win. I'm like, this isn't a game we win. Yeah. We play, we tell a story together, we have fun.
So, like, there's times that I've questioned what is the legit, rules or limitations, and I feel like I've erred on the side of restraint far more often with my character. He's essentially, artificer in this world, engineer, and it's like, okay, well, I have access to a little bit of, supernatural powers or the extraordinary abilities. But it's like, okay, well, I would rather err on the side of caution and say, well, I just can't do that, rather than go the other direction. And it's like, because I've got alteration, which is how I actually fix and make things. And I've got movement, because I've got boots that are supposed to make me faster. But it's like, technically, movement is flight and teleportation, and none of that makes any sense for this character. And then his foremost thing is he's got energy, and he's got a flamethrower that he's modified. So like Sweet. That's his thing. And like there's been a couple of times where it's like, oh, well, can I actually do this?
I mean, that's kind of an interesting point too, is like with Banes and Boons, you get access to all of them that you qualify for. But like, I think, there's plenty of reasons not to use them all. I think, again, that's like what kind of makes you have those creative challenges and like allows you to really hone in your character. So, if you do everything, then it's like, what is this character about?
Right. So, I mean, the good practice that I think a lot of people have done and a lot of people have talked about is to pick Banes or Boons that fit the theme of your character, and when you invoke them or when you hit them, all right, that's what I do. Like, all right, I've got fire attacks. So literally persistent damage makes the most sense to me. Well, I set
Yep.
them on fire, and if they can't be set on fire, well, then nerds to me. But
Yeah, and I mean, I think the thing we should all remember always as players too is no matter how powerful our characters are, the GM can kill us at any time.
Yeah, I'm fond of saying that. I'm like, for the player that was just trying to win, D&D as an example, I'm like, I have all these books with these ways to kill you, and whatever I can think of. That's not really the goal. So, Sean Thomas, I've only played D&D, honestly. That's why I dig Nerdarchy so much. And that's why we primarily stick to D&D. We would like to sneak this other stuff in on you guys. So, maybe you'll accidentally get exposed to some new RPGs that are a lot of fun, different genres. I mean, we love D&D, but we also like playing some other stuff as well.
And it
Yeah,
goes back to
absolutely.
what you were saying earlier, Dave, is sometimes there are systems that just do things better. And while, yes, you can play this style of game or that style of game with the D&D rules, there are systems that are gonna do it better. And I am really digging Open Legend. I think there's some things that it does better. It gives things a more open approach. But if you're going to have people that are looking to exploit the rules, or if you want that that old style D&D feel where it's like, well, I want to collect all this cool gear and blah 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 blah, well then maybe Open Legends not for you. But
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's okay. Like, I think it's good, right? Like, we don't want, all our games to have the same advantages. And so, like, this is the amazing thing. We're like in sort of RPG renaissance where you've got, so many greats. Like, so, D&D obviously has been, I think really crushing it recently with like 5th edition seems to be universally loved by both like old school and newer players, which is really cool. But then we've got like lots of indie RPGs. We've got people experimenting with like, no rules, like a little rules, like like 1d6 rule determine things. And then you've got stuff that's more in between where like Open Legend, I think, rides a nice line of being accessible and approachable and not as dense, but still gives you that depth when you want it, when you need
absolutely. So we got a question here in the comments, mechanical question. It feels like not putting points into extraordinary abilities puts a big limitations on Bane and Boon options. Is that correct, or is that person missing something?
I would say you get access to quite a bit with agility or might, but I would agree, like definitely extraordinary abilities definitely give you access to a wider range of different banes and boons. And so I think that's very much by design. I think you'll also notice too that there's a lot more feats that and there's a decent mix, but I think I would say there's a lot more feats that expand upon your physical abilities tied to your physical attributes versus your extraordinary, though there's still plenty to use with your extraordinary attributes. But I think that's just kind of like a little bit of yin and yang, but you're certainly not closed out of Banes and Boons by any means. You probably would have access to like at least a dozen.
So are we still on track for the launch?
So for the core rules or the Amoria's Dawn campaign?
We'll start with the core rules and work our way to the campaign setting.
Yeah, core rules, I think we already put out like the alpha build of core rules. So if you're a backer, actually, you could get access to the core rules right now. I mean, of course, you can get access to the core rules on the website, always 100% free. Like everything is on the website, already good to go. So if you want to start playing right now, that's an option. But the core rule book itself, yeah, the alpha's already gone out to backers, and then we don't have a firm 100% release date on Amoria's Dawn, but it's still looking like we should be able to get it out before the end of summer. Basically, like I've been saying, we've just been working on getting the formatting basically 100% right, but otherwise, it's completely written, and so then it's just the time it takes to print it.
So are you? Yeah, I actually have the I guess the alpha rules, the PDF. So have you guys thought any further ahead, or are you just like, we want to get these books done, or are you guys looking at what's next?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have meetings with our writing team every week. We're simultaneously sort of working on getting all our awesome stuff out for all the backers, because we have like a lot of other products tied to the Kickstarter. But we are actually already working on other settings as well. So I don't want to, it's hard to get people excited about it without like knowing how much to say. So I'll just say, yeah, we're working on developing a couple new settings that I think people will be really excited about, but I can't really say much more than that right now.
So we actually have Brian Feaster in the chat.
Oh no, he's gonna have hard questions.
So
Behave yourself.
No, he's not actually doing questions. He's actually answering. He's answering things and clarifying. So he says, in regards to the physical release, logistically, the printed core book and Amelia's Dawn are shipping together. So
cool.
Nothing is going to ship out for those things if you got them both until both are done.
So
Great.
Hopefully towards the end of the summer we actually have books in hand. That would be great. I must say I really hate the format of the website for when I was reading the rules.
Sure.
And then the PDF came out. I'd been like, oh, I could have used this a month ago.
Yeah, hard to beat the book.
I'm much more I want the physical thing in my hand at the table, and like if I'm gaming online, I'd much rather be like, all right, there's the camera, and I'll flip out and look through the book here, rather than like, oh well, let me flip away and even opening another tab or opening another thing. Like I just feel that at times that's more of a distraction. But I know that with the technical age that we're in, there's so many people that are like, oh well, I'll just keep the PDF and I can look at it on a device, or I can look at it on my computer, and but that's not me. I want the thing in my hands.
I do like the website for when we're playing. Like I'll have the Boons and Bane tabs open, or I have them open in separate tabs, so I can just pull them up and they're searchable. But from the perspective, I'm reading through the thing. I don't even like reading electronically personally, but I'm a little bit older, so.
Hey, no worries. I'm pretty old school in that respect too. Like I definitely prefer physical books, and I think a lot of times like sometimes you can appreciate the art a little more. There's like a difference between like a big record where you can like really see the album cover, and then like just listening on Spotify. And I like both. Like the thing is, I appreciate both, but they have their strengths and weaknesses.
The tactile element. I think it's it comes down to the tactile element. So
yeah.
Do you guys have you guys thought about or have any plans for like genre specific, like doing a superheroes book or a sci-fi book?
Oh, all the above. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely doing a superhero style setting would be something I'd be hugely into, and definitely science fiction is something we've been largely thinking about. So we actually have two mini campaign settings that I can tell you about right now that are tied to the Kickstarter. So we will actually be releasing a book called Shores of Valhalla, which is sort of about basically the warrior afterlife and all the stuff that's going on there, and the constant battling and gaining favor of the gods. And then we also have a science fiction mini campaign that we're also working on. That's all going to be about, it's going to be, I guess, about technology and different dimensions and all sorts of weird stuff that can only happen in space, of course.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued about that one. I was disappointed when the other one won in the voting because I was hoping for something a little more. I don't want to say that it's not interesting, but something less fantasy, I guess, because there's just so much fantasy out there. I was hoping to see a different take from Open Legend. So I when I voted, I would have voted for either like the steampunk or superheroes or something along those lines.
Well, I know that before we decided on the poll, you were talking about running some kind of game on a space station.
Yeah.
So that, I was kind of intrigued by that angle. Because then as opposed to the fantasy races, you've literally got aliens, which then that opens up to, okay, well, I can look like whatever I want to look like, as opposed to these already predetermined situations.
I'm sure the settings will be amazing. It's just my personal preference is all.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, understandable. So I mean, I guess that's kind of like the good thing is like, hey, if people want more fantasy, you know, we're gonna give it to them, but we definitely want to do some non-fantasy stuff, and we want to have eventually, I think, you know, hopefully I'm not going too far, but I think what's really exciting too is like having a setting that really specifically throws you through like multiple times, like very different settings. Like we get to do that a little bit with Amoria's Dawn. Like there's some very drastic differences in the settings, but like really play it up and build it into the world. I think that'd be super fun.
Yeah, there's just so much cool things you can do with that game system. You can pretty much play any genre. Like I can't think of anything that isn't going to work well unless you want like a simulationist type game,
Yeah.
which I'm so far removed from that. I feel like the older I get, the more rules light I want.
Me too, me too. And I think the cool thing is like if you ever like, oh, let's do like an Avengers campaign, let's do like a John Wick campaign. It's like you have a rule set that's like it makes it so easy to adapt like your favorite sort of you know, creative worlds out there and just like jump into them.
And you know what's great about that? Because you have other systems where you can do it too, but it's
Mm-hmm.
fun knowing that I can choose the system that I want to do it with, right? I can go Open
Yeah,
Legend, I can go Cipher System, I can go Fate, and they're all drastically different. They're
yeah,
gonna be drastically different games. I guess as a D&D person, I like rolling the D20. I like the way the damage happens in Open Legend is so streamlined. You attack the defense, the difference is your damage, and then when you add into that, you have the exploding dice. Then you have room for all kinds of crazy stuff to happen.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes combat ends in one attack, and you're like, oh, okay, 73 damage. Yeah, you shot the bullet, it bounced back against the wall and went back through their brain, and then a couple more times. Yeah, you got them.
Our
So
very
go ahead, Dave.
our very first session of Open Legend that we did, I kind of opened up with this like chase scene, this desperate situation, and that they're on their airship and they're fleeing the
Mm-hmm.
city of Haven, which is basically the city that was destroyed and kind of came back, and they're fleeing all these like eldritch horrors, and this one big bad rears up, and my psychic player decides he wants to mentally contact it.
Ooh.
And I'm just like, yeah, that's just can't go good. And dice just kept exploding. So in D&D, that character's head would have just been blown off his
Yeah.
shoulders. But in Open Legend, I mean, granted, a GM can do whatever he wants, but in Open Legend, though, the rules actually support you going, instead of just murdering this character in the first scene, how about we have something really interesting happen? And he
Mm-hmm.
does. He gets his mind, blasted, and he ends up unconscious and bleeding from his nose and his ears. But like going forward, now he's like connected to that eldritch horror, and he has nightmares, and he can feel its presence, and it's become a larger part of the game, and it's actually like sucked some of the players into that as well.
Oh, I
So
love that. I love that because like when you set CR as a DM or like AC and stuff like that, like you're like, I'm pretty sure like if I set it this high, they just can't touch this creature. But like that's the interesting in Open Legend. You can even if you take that sort of approach and like try to make something unbeatable, there's still like a random chance that they could still pull a fast one on it. So it kind of keeps you on your toes a little bit as a GM.
So how many sessions or like how much exposure to the game have you had of actually playing?
I have GM'd 3 games and been a player twice. So I'm a noob, honestly.
So in that time frame, what is the highest number that you've actually seen, happen?
Honestly, I don't think I've seen anything that high. I think like when I was GMing last time, someone got like a 48, and that was like, whoa, because that was like an insta kill because it was level 1. But no 3-digit numbers. Not yet.
Well, I haven't seen any 3 digits, but when Brian was actually here, doing the play test, I think, either as the Kickstarter was going on or before it even started,
Mm-hmm.
we were given, really early exposure to it. We had seen a number in the 70s.
Whoa.
actually, ironically, Ryan, who was part of Nerdarchy at the time, he actually got 3 successive 20s, and it was like, the odds on that is ridiculous. But it was just amusing to see, like, all right, we had a number in the 70s on a thing, but it wound up being like a knowledge roll as opposed to like an attack. So like it was
so
really.
What does that mean? Yeah, did he like see the universe and realize like all matter was one?
I actually think what Brian did is like, all right, you have the ability to insert whatever you want here. So like, Ryan was actually able to dictate what was going on,
Cool.
and literally change the fabric of the game because he got so high. But you're talking about the dice exploding and the setting a number that's not feasible in D&D, unless you roll such and such. But it's really awesome that the chances are low. But when you have these dice explode, like you can change something from a mediocre or moderate result to something fantastic, and it can be done on any particular roll. I think that there's no other game that does something like that, and it's just awesome.
Well, there's other games that do exploding dice. I'm not familiar. I haven't played any of them, and I'm not familiar with them. But it is a fun mechanic. I know some people like it, some people don't. Speaking of which, Brian has asked anybody in the chat who's playing Open Legend, drop in the chat the highest number you've seen at the table so far. Brian says he says he thinks the highest he's heard of is 92, and he doesn't think he's seen triple digits yet.
Okay. This is the hunt for the triple-digit explosion.
Oh, it's only a matter of time. Well, really, all it takes is a high-level boss. They have a really good chance. They have the best chance of doing that.
Yeah.
Because so far, my highest numbers have been from, and I think I've seen like 40, 50-ish during gameplay, but most of it hasn't been from the D20s. It's actually been from like D6s.
Yeah.
Where I just have to roll a lot of sixes. Right?
Well, I mean, literally on one of Megan's last checks, like her D6 exploded 3 times, so she was getting like 20 something from just a single D6.
Yeah, the best though is like when you roll all these explosions, but your D20 is like a 2, so it doesn't matter. It's like just insult to injury.
I've done a little bit of both, where I actually had the stat dice, the D6s, D8s, actually moving, but I don't think I've rolled anything higher than like a 36 or a 38.
Yeah, most of the time I think that stuff will be pretty rare. You'll be like, yeah, I got like a 28. I can do something good. Not going to rewrite the canon of this world, but that still feels pretty good. So
of the games you're playing right now, are you playing now or running right now?
I'm actually going to be taking over. So I'm going to be taking over for, we have like a internal Amoria's Dawn campaign. So I'm going to start GMing that on Monday, actually, for the first time. And right now I'm kind of just like running I've started multiple campaigns, but I think I'm actually running a campaign with my friends back in Chicago. So every time I go to visit them, we'll play another chapter of it. And that's my superhero campaign.
That's a little bit of a commute though for you.
Yeah, it's not ideal. I wouldn't recommend that kind of strategy.
We're actually heading out your way next week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit. We are going to be in LA for GM's tips. I guess we're shooting on Saturday, but we're getting out there Wednesday. We're going to leave late Monday. So we're going to try to get some fan hangouts in and take in some of the sites. And my wife keeps saying, is there going to be time for us to actually do anything that's not work, or am I just going to be following you around? I don't know. I'm kind of playing it loose. We'll see. I'm like, I think there might be some time Thursday during the day and maybe Friday during the day and Monday. We'll figure something out.
Yeah, as long as you guys have some time to eat some tacos at any point, I think you'll be okay.
I think so too. So the superhero sci-fi game, was that one you ran or played in?
That's one I ran. I've actually ran the same mission twice for two different groups, which has actually been really fun. I'd never done that before, but it's kind of an interesting playtesting kind of situation. And it's based on, like, I've been writing this like comic book for the last couple months, and it's like based on the writing I was doing for that project. And yeah, it's been super fun. It's like near future. There's like a lot of ecological disasters. Like there's like an Iron Man type character who's a rich, powerful man in a great suit of armor, and he's like done stuff like he stopped the oceans from boiling, but now like the world is locked in like a second ice age.
Oops.
Yeah, whoops.
These things happen. So who's your big bad in that game?
I don't really have it's weird. I actually don't have like a super villain right now. Like the big bad that they faced the other week was like one of the Avengers types members. So like the way it works is like you're hired to be like scabs to replace the big super team, the Justice League of this world. And so then you face off against one of the members of it. So like the last time I ran it, it was this guy who like turned people to gold when he started touching them. And he was called the Golden Child. And they beat him, though, which was surprising. It was one of those situations where it's sort of supposed to be a puzzle, but some exploding dice turned it into honest combat. And so I think like the big bad is like, I got to figure out who the rest of this quote unquote Justice League is. And because now they're all going to want to get revenge.
Good guys fighting good guys. That never ends well.
Yeah, no, it's going to be bad.
So at first I thought it was going to be like a Captain Planet thing. I mean, Captain Planet.
Yeah.
Where they have where they're fighting ecological terrors all the time.
No. I mean, in the first one, that's just kind of like background to give you the idea that these superheroes are very imperfect. And like the first mission is them infiltrating a government alien test facility, and they encounter different aliens and scientists there and stuff like that. So it's a weird mix of sci-fi and superheroes.
Very cool. You're saying about running the same game a couple times. I actually had Keith Baker on earlier in the week, and he did this thing where he went couch surfing for like a year. And one of the things he would do is run a game for you and your friends. And so he ran the same adventure, he said, 56 times.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was like, when you said, well, it was cool running the same adventure twice for the playtesting, I'm like, well.
Amazing. What did he glean from that experience? I'm really curious how he felt about it.
The biggest thing was like he would, every group was different and they would solve the problems differently. So that, that was kind of like the takeaway. It was, it was an adventure set in Ebron, and it was basically they were hunting for a murderer who was going to pull a face-off thing where he was going to switch who he was, and they had to find him in Greywall, which is in Drome, which is a city of monsters, pretty much. But they knew he was going to perform this ritual. So like, some people would, oh, well, he's going to need components to go after that. And other people they would pretend to be relatives. And one character pretended to be with child, and they're looking for the daddy. So there was like, the takeaway was, no matter how many times you run something, different groups will do it different.
Yeah, 100%. Regardless of rule set, I think that is just always true.
So what's in your bucket list for Open Legend? Is there one thing like before, if you ever move on or do something different, like you absolutely want to accomplish?
Wow. Well, I would love to find a way. So one of my like supreme goals is find a way to tie every single setting we release together with like a little hint that they're all actually connected by one thread or one character or one object or something. I think that would be my plan to do, is like Brandon Sanderson style, like multiverse. Like in the end, if you like were in our sci-fi setting, you could potentially still get to Amoria.
Sorry, sometimes I get trapped in the comments. Sean Thompson.
I was like, oh, maybe that idea is not good.
No, absolutely. I was stuck between reading a comment and responding. I'm like, That is cool though. Like I want to, before I leave, I want to hide as many Easter eggs as I can. And let them find them. Sean Thomas, email us at nerdarchy@gmail.com and we will get in touch with you. Someone else is just outside of LA asking how to hang out with us. We're going to be there, guys, and we're going to be looking to hang out with you guys for sure. So how long have you been working in the industry? You've got a couple different companies under your belt.
Yeah, I think it's since like late 2013, if I remember correctly. So I first started working with Harebrained Schemes on a little game called Golem Arcana, actually. Sweet game, sadly defunct. It was a mix of like tabletop miniatures with an app, and it was pretty sweet because you could like interface with all the pieces and the board with this like stylus, and then so if you put your stylus on a square, it'd be like, oh, there's a mountain here, you gain a bonus to like your range if you're on it, or there's a forest here, you get your cover bonus here. But it was a really cool world to write in, and so that's where I started, and it was very, very like inspired by sort of lots of cool like Mongolian Empire sort of myths and stuff like that, and after that, what's that?
While I am sorry that that thing did not take off, but it being defunct allowed me to pick up this awesome Castle Golem, which is actually on the Nerdarchy shelf, and might eventually be something in one game or another. I got it for a very, very, very much of a steal of a price.
Oh yeah, so you picked up the Titan. I'm trying to think of what's that name? Not Jihara, is it?
I don't know.
I know exactly what you're talking about, but I cannot remember the specific name. But yes, that is a great. I mean, they had some great figures, and they're all assembled and pre-painted. So that's cool. Yeah, please use that. So cool. But yeah, working with that team there was pretty amazing, and getting to meet the Harebrained Schemes folks. And actually, before that, like the whole way that I really got to know that company was I volunteered to work with them at Gen Con. Nice. So I was part of their booth there, and I was very loud, and they liked that. So
either that, they're like anything to get them to shut up. You know what? I find that being persistent and being loud, it's true. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. It's in most things in life.
Yeah, absolutely. They remembered, and they invited me back for future Gen Cons, and so that was really cool. And so that's kind of how it all started. And then I worked with this other company, another tabletop company called Calliope Games, and I just did like a little project for them because they had this game called Menu Masters, which is out now. And the cool thing is, like, we did a lot of research to sort of look at all these different culinary backgrounds, but then tie it together like in a fun sort of Ratatouille style character fashion. So I got to work with them on that, and and then it was Open Legend after that.
Awesome.
So is Open Legend your first full-time gig in this industry, or have you been working full-time?
No, that's my first full-time position. I have been a freelancer since the beginning, and so yeah, this is a pretty amazing opportunity.
That is awesome, because in this industry it's really hard, unless you're working for Paizo or or Wizards of the Coast, to get a full-time gig. And even because listen, one of the bigger companies is Cobalt Press, and that owner has a day job. So
yeah, right. So it's interesting. This is like, if there's any advice I have to give on it, like for all the other freelance writers and RPG makers out there, it's just like, I don't know, I think just treat every project with an incredible amount of respect, and I guess, like, see what comes of that. I guess, like, really, really believe in everything you're working on. And I think that really can come through.
Brian brings up an interesting point too, that you're working full time for Hyper RPG, and that's the other thing. Like, you have to find creative ways to work around it. Like, I mean, I just started doing this full time this year, and I would never be able to just go probably work for a company and work full time, but we kind of work. I don't know. in the industry adjacent. I don't know what we do, what you would call this, but Hyper RPG is along the same lines. So
new media.
I'm also curious, what did you do over there?
So at Hyper RPG, yeah, and that's a good point too. Is like, you definitely, if you're gonna be in the games industry, you got to get used to having, I think, a day job at first. And so at Hyper RPG, I was the production manager there. So what I did there was I developed new shows. I got to teach people how to play role-playing games. That was one of my favorite parts, was just like working with performers and actors and comedians and all these improv folks who are naturally good at performing, and just being like, hey, okay, this is great. All you got to do is make sure that, basically it's in line with what the die is saying. And so that was probably one of my favorite things to do. And just stuff like scheduling, getting the sets together. A big thing that I did was work on like interaction there. So a big role I had there was making sure that the audience could influence all the RPGs we were playing. So, you could help give people extra powers, buffs. You could actually do stuff to hurt them, to add more chaos to the adventure. So like the whole goal was that anytime someone wanted to like basically tip to the channel, it would be more than, we wanted to do more than just like, take the tip and appreciate it, which was great. But we also wanted to be like, hey, this can also give you a chance to be part of sort of the shared storytelling.
Encounter Roleplay does some really interesting stuff with that as well, and I think the C team is too. Like, and it's weird to see where the
I actually proposed the C team's interaction.
Oh, cool!
Because the C team is actually on Hyper RPG.
Yeah, so I didn't even realize that. Being a content creator, I spend way more time creating content than I get to watch it. Even people talk about shows and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. I've got like 5 seasons that dropped on Netflix that I still haven't gotten to. My son has already shotgunned them all.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a ton out there, and when you're doing live content too, especially, like that can suck up a lot of your time.
So Kurt had a question for you. What are your favorite aspects of Open Legend, and is there anything you would like to tweak?
I don't know if I'm quite experienced enough to start tweaking, but I mean, I've certainly already played around with the rules a little bit. Part of the fun of like working on some of like the stat blocks for our NPC characters is breaking the rules every now and again, just to give character something extra special to play with. So I don't know, as a like a GM, like I'm already like, oh, I'm gonna break the rules whenever I think I can do something fun anyway. So I don't know what I tweak yet, but what I really love is just how simple the attribute system is, where like you get your stats and okay, I'm always gonna roll, like if I'm jumping over a fence, I'm rolling my agility. If I'm trying to aim the sniper rifle, agility. If I'm trying to pick this lock, agility. So I think to me, like basically when I first saw the rules, what I fell in love with was the simplicity of focusing on attributes for everything.
So there was a question. And I guess there's 2 people that are kind of asking the same kind of thing. So Kyle is asking if you could change, and this is probably right up your alley anyway, being the narrative director, right? So if you could change one stereotype in fantasy, like elves live in forests, dwarves are in mines and smiths, what would you change? Or is it something you can talk about that you guys have already changed in Amoria's Dawn?
Ooh, good points. I mean, it's kind of interesting because that was actually like an absolute challenge when we were writing Amoria's Dawn. We're like, well, if we're gonna write elves, like, they can't just be elves. We've seen elves a million times, and like it's great. Like, we have sort of this shorthand where you say elves and everyone knows what it means. But we wanted to do something different. So, I mean, what we did to modify them was we have like these super weird bioengineer elves who like live in sort of these living membrane like sort of hive style buildings, and they focus a lot on altering their physical bodies, so the researchers might have like added extra sort of basically lenses to their eyes so that they can like magnify what they're looking at just by like sort of shifting what's going on there. And then, of course, we had the Valyrian elves, who were these like swamp-dwelling, more shamanistic elves. And I think like the big thing with them is like they sort of revolve around, like a lot of their culture revolves around what we call blood singing, so blood magic. And part of that though is like, making them like cool and fierce and scary, but also like, saying, well, it's a little more interesting than that. Like with like this blood, they can, call on their ancestors and speak with them and get guidance from them. And part of what I really like about them specifically is that they're really into different like sort of precious stones, and like there's these leech stones that actually absorb the blood of like fallen enemies, and so people are like always looking to like dig those up and find them because they're super powerful. So like I kind of like really love that as like a currency, and I think it like says a lot about them as a culture. And then I think with the Ruvial elves, these were like the most traditional to start. They're like nice, good looking. They've got like very proper culture. But I think the big thing with them was to like root them for like a longing of like a past tradition. So their entire city was originally like swept up in this flood and is now deep within the river. And so what you're seeing is like these elves are occupying an ideal of their past culture. And so that's kind of like a fun way to play on what everyone thinks an elf should be. Because that's what they're doing. They're like us in that way.
So in Amuria's Dawn, are you guys going to have like basically like templates? Like, you want to play this kind of elf, this is what it looks like, and this is kind of what your build should look like?
No, I don't think so. We definitely want to like focus on the fact that people can sort of find any which way to build any of these characters. So we definitely wanted to like give them defined cultures, but we didn't want to define what the players would choose. So, even if you are playing a, Valyrian, and they're very much into warrior culture, there's plenty of room for intellectuals, mystics, etc. And so the point is that there's plenty of exceptions for the players. So if they feel the need to play something kind of counter to the cultural zeitgeist of one of these elven groups, that they're totally encouraged to do that.
So, then it comes back to kind of what I was talking about earlier, is like the player has to agree what their character is, and then kind of, fall in those parameters in some way, shape, or form for it to be true to the concept they originally pitched.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I think it really comes down to that, is like, you as a player, there's the responsibility of the players to, make sure that they are in line with what their character can or cannot do, and being honest about that. But also, I guess it's on the GM to make sure you're making sure your players are staying true to their characters as well.
So I think I'm going to hit you with one more question that I saw up earlier from Stacy Winters, and then we'll let you get on with your day.
Sounds great.
And I know Ted's actually working right now, so he should probably do some of that. If you could add something to your open legend based on a setting of your own creation, what would you add to the game? You've got carte blanche.
Wow. Interesting. So let's unpack this question. So does that mean I can add like any rules I want, or like, are they saying any setting I want? We'll say both, I guess. That's more interesting, right?
I think so.
Okay. I would love to create, so something I've thought about is playing with like, so we have perks and flaws to define backgrounds and stuff, but I would love to make a setting that like is more resonant with your background having a major effect. So like, I would love to do a setting where like everyone maybe was a criminal in their past life, and then like part of character creation, and of course you'd have to get your party to agree with this, is that like you're being interrogated, and so you're being asked to describe what you know about another character, and then something they say becomes true about them. Like, I think that would be a really fun setup for an adventure if everyone was on the same page with it. So like everyone would be asked to sort of incriminate each other, and so that way we'd find out about their past, but no one would be in control of it, and then they would have to roll with that and work with that and sort of make that a part of their character.
I think there's a little bit of that in I want to say Fiasco, but I haven't actually played it, so I'm not positive.
Yeah, Fiasco, sort of. I've played it once.
But yeah, that kind of stuff is really cool. It's cool when you do that stuff in a session 0. I've seen for Titan's Grave, I believe Will Wheaton did a little bit of that as well. Like that stuff is always really cool and fun, and adds just another aspect to the game, as well as more agency for the players. Before we get out of here, guys, like we said, we will be in LA next week, and we still have the GoFundMe going on. We are not to the goal yet. We're more than halfway. Thank you for everyone who supported us. We really do appreciate it. You've helped us raise over $2,000, and we literally have enough money to fly out there now, so that is good. We may be sleeping on the sidewalks, possibly. Maybe we'll go crash with Ryan. I don't know.
If you need a place to stay, I got some couches.
But we would, anything you can do to help, we greatly appreciate it. If you've already given or you can't, please just share it out on social media. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Thanks for coming on, Ryan, and hanging out with us. We had some tech issues in the beginning, and
sorry about that.
Well, we pushed through. We made it work. It was really fun hanging out with you. I'm so glad that we got you on here. It's been a great conversation. Open invitation to come back whenever you want. And will you be in Gen Con?
Yeah, I will be at Gen Con. So actually, I'll be running games. So if you want to sign up actually to play a game with myself or Brian or any of the other members of the writing team, we'll actually be GMing a bunch of different settings. So we'll be doing science fiction, fantasy, and all sorts of in between. And please see us there. And of course, if you're interested, if you don't know what the heck Open Legend is, or if you want to start playing right now, you can go to openlegendrpg.com, and all the rules are there. Like nothing is held back. Everything you need to play. Check it out. And thank you guys so much. Ted, David, I really appreciate the chance to come talk to you guys. And hopefully I'll see you in LA if there's any time.
Absolutely. You're very welcome. And if you don't want to think too hard, just go to the description. The links are there. Also to Ryan's website. You can catch up with him on Twitter as well. So that stuff is in the description for your convenience. And until next time, guys, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.